Welcome, I'm Makinia Juma, and today I'm joined with Tess Wandia from Africa Check. She's a senior researcher in Kenya, and Alphonse Shundu, who's the editor for Kenya for Africa Check. And today we're going to talk about the Kenya's new airport controversy, which is where the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was proposed to be taken over by the Adani Group. The Adani Group that is owned by Gautam Adani. And this brought a lot of controversies, a lot of debates in Kenya that really we need to get into it and know how this goes. I'll let Alphonse talk about the Adani deal, what we know, what's there, and what's the truth.
Let me just lay out the context.
Okay.
So Kenya's airport, there's been an interest to have it expanded for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issue here is that the Adani Group, owned by Indian billionaire Gautam Adani, put in a privately initiated proposal to rebuild the airport, to expand it, and to make it work. So the issue here is when it comes to the airport, we are going to talk about the controversy.
Mm-hmm.
Why were Kenyans questioning the deal?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we've been here before with projects or mega projects that do not have transparency. Here we have Kenyans questioning Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, biggest airport in the region. It's going to be taken over by a foreigner. Many of the people look at it as a national asset. And so if it's going to be taken over, it is only fair that Kenyans know what is on the table.
Yeah.
So what are the terms in this deal? What are the timelines?
Mm-hmm.
How much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
What do Kenyans get for putting this? Those details were not forthcoming. And it actually didn't help that top officials were saying that, look, the airport cannot be taken over. And then after a few days and a few times, then you hear the airport is going to be taken over. And I believe what we are here to do now is to just talk about the talking points from the government, from the minister, from the government spokesperson, and from the majority whip.
So we'll start with the first claim where the Minister of Transport said that Adani runs 14 airports around the world.
I don't know how many private companies run private airports like Adani runs. Maybe 14 airports around the world today, and I've mentioned that.
You got this claim as incorrect.
Yes.
So what was the process test?
Yeah, so of course, right now, Kenyans are very anxious about who is Adani, what has Adani done. So of course, Africa Check reached out to Adani. Unfortunately, we were not able to get a direct line of communication with them. So, of course, there are other ways to access this information, but already when you see the main target of, the controversy is not being very forthcoming with information, of course, a red flag already reveals itself. There's a bit of lack of transparency there. However, Adani is, a large organization, and they have an online footprint. They have a website. So we went to the Adani Airport Holding Limited website. They have a fantastic website, and it's well thought out. It has a lot of information about the type of investments that they have in aviation, in operation development of airports. So what this hunt for information revealed is that Adani manages 7 airports.
In the world?
In India. Exactly.
Not even in the
so
world. Okay.
We were very, caught unawares by this information. And one of the major airports is Navi Mumbai, which is still being developed. So those are 8 airports, 7
operational.
Exactly, 7 operational and 1 work in progress. So now we are very concerned about this. Who is Adani and why are they being applauded for their expertise? And yet what is being revealed is not really what the government is actually communicating through Churchill.
That was very curious. Like the Minister of Transport is supposed, when you're fronting a company to do a major infrastructure shift in your country, the least the citizens of that country expect of you is to
know
at
the
least get
information.
speak
Information.
factually,
Yes,
True, because if I'm going to look for information to do with airports, to do with the roads, I'll ask the Minister of Transport.
When you say 14 airports across the world, and it turns out it is
Only
seven operational airports and
Yes.
one under construction or under development,
and it's just in India.
and it's only in one country.
Yes, true.
There are questions there.
Exactly,
And
major
I think
questions.
that's one of the things that why we needed to debunk that talking point.
So if this is the way they're trying to sell us a Adani deal, yes, this is the information they're giving us for us to actually accept it. And we've also seen where the majority whip, that is Osoro Silvanus or Silvanus. When he was saying, like, he was trying to compare Rwanda to Kenya, so to make us feel like it's doable, Rwanda is doing better than us. When he said, like, Rwanda has built an airport that is second to none, and through a public-private partnership with a 90-10 investment split. When he was bringing this information in, was this information actually correct?
The reason why they are touting the public-private partnership, it's because we are up to our neck in debt. Like Kenya is up to its neck in debt.
Yes.
So about 6 to 7 shillings are used to, of every 10 collected, are used to repay the country's debt.
Okay.
So for the government and for the people running the economy, it is very reasonable. It looks logical for them to say, look, we are not borrowing to build. We are actually involving the private sector so that they build this for us, then they operate, and then they transfer to us. So up to that point, now we understand the context of why the government thinks a public-private partnership is the way to go. Now, keep going on the tweet.
Yes, so through a public-private partnership with a 90-10 investment split.
What Osoro is trying to do here is to say that 90% of the stake in Rwanda's new airport is owned by the private sector, and only 10% is owned by the government. So in a way, he's trying to shift that narrative and say that there is by having Adani take over the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, there is nothing for Kenyans to worry about. It's something that has been done even in this region and in a neighboring country. But then the question becomes, is that true?
So what did the data reveal? That when you went behind the scenes to look for the information, to see whether Osoro was really pushing us in the right direction, what was revealed?
So we checked with the Ministry of Infrastructure in Rwanda, which is in charge of the infrastructure, roads, airports, and transport in Rwanda. The split that we found is when it started, Rwanda engaged a Portuguese firm, and the agreement was 75-25. The deal morphed when Qatar Airways took over. Now, with Qatar Airways, it is 60-40. So Qatar reduced. Airways, it's 60. Rwandan government is 40. So it's not 90-10.
Yeah.
It is 60-40. So Osoro was wrong. And this is a major national asset. And you can see the way Rwanda is behaving. It has to have a major stake on the country's airport. There is a bit where he continues, where he says the airport is
second
to none.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Now, when it's second to none, English phrase, basically what does it mean? It's the best airport. So when we sit down and we're like, okay, he says Rwanda is building an airport that is second to none. What's the criteria? We go for passenger numbers, for example. And passenger numbers, when it's fully complete, that airport would have 14 million passenger capacity. The first phase, which is scheduled for 2028 to reopen, if from the documents that we have checked, from the Rwanda Governance Board, from the Rwanda Aviation Authority, from the Ministry of Infrastructure in Rwanda, the data shows it's going to reopen in 2018, but the first phase, 7 million passengers. When it's fully complete, 14 million passengers.
Yeah.
And then we asked ourselves, is there an airport in Africa
That has
that beats 14 million passengers?
Oh, yes. For
Yeah.
sure.
So we
For
found
sure.
that Ethiopia, the numbers show that it would be doing 22 million.
Yeah.
That's
Cairo, the numbers for 2023 were 26 million a year. Oliver Tambo in South Africa, they are doing 21 million a year. So when you say 14 million is second to none, that's really
is
it's
already
incorrect.
wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
Still on the same Bugesera airport in Rwanda. There's one that Chirchi, the Minister for Transport, said.
Bugesera Rwanda Airport is a 14 million capacity airport at about, 1.3 billion? We're talking about a 30 million capacity airport at 1.8. So you're talking about really two different capacity airports.
So when you check this claim, this is 1.8 billion. That is for Adani JKA airport. And this other one is 1.3 billion. What was he trying to bring across on this specific claim?
We are getting value for money. That's the story he wants to say.
But is it true?
So that's the story he wants to tell.
Okay.
But the story itself it's not true. If you look at the budget documents from the Rwandan government, from the Ministry of Finance in Rwanda, when you check the budget documents, you will see that the cost of the Bugesera airport has been revised different times. When it started, and this is just the first phase for 7 million.
Since 2016, that
Yeah,
is.
this is the first phase for 7 million passengers. So when he says 14 million, he's wrong. So the 1.3 was revised to 1.7
Right.
and then revised again. The latest figure that goes around when you speak to the people in Rwanda and you check the budget documents, it shows that it's going to be done at a cost of $2 billion.
Right.
And that is for 7 million passengers a year. Now, when Chirchir says 30 million, he's comparing different things. We are expanding JKIA.
Yeah.
JKIA already right now, it's doing about 8.3 million passengers every year. That's according to the data we've seen from the strategic plan at the 2023-2027 filed by the Ministry of Transport. So when you start comparing, you're not comparing equals.
Okay. There was this claim also that the Kenyan government spokesperson, that is Isaac Mwaura, said, and he issued a statement. He claimed that currently the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport handles 8.6 million passengers annually. Was this correct?
That is not backed by data that we have checked. Yeah, because when you check the data, the numbers is not correct, and it's in this sense. So how do we tell the capacity of JKIA? We have to trace the archival documents from when it was built in 78. And when it was being built, then they said it is 2.5 million passenger capacity. Between 78 and 2015, the airport was gradually expanded.
Yes.
Okay.
And then by 2015, when they reopened the new terminals, they said the passenger capacity was 7.5. This information is coming from the Kenya Airports Authority, which is the manager of the country's airports and also manages JKIA. Now, when we move again and we see that where can we get the data? When you look at the reports of the Kenya Airports Authority, and you check the most recent data that we could find is the strategic plan from the Ministry of Transport, 2023 to 2027. So that strategy document says it's 8.3 million passengers a year. And so when the government spokesperson says 8.6, so you might ask, so what is this obsession with 7.5, 8.6, 8.3, 8. Passenger numbers are definite things.
Yeah.
You either board the plane, get through the airport, or you don't.
Yeah.
So it is just basic data collection. And if we are getting different numbers from different government documents, especially from a government spokesperson, that is something that worries you. So you have to make sure you check what the numbers are, because all this is used in the calculation of revenues. It's used in the calculation of even the handling capacity, the type of investments you're going to put. If you understate the number by, say, 300,000, the efficiency of the airport suffers.
I'm still getting you back to that test. We had this claim, also the same, it's just the same on capacity and customers, where now Transport Minister stayed like now. So Kenya Airport has a capacity of up to 8 million customers. What does it mean? Is it different from what we've just talked about, the capacity where Alphonse said 8.3?
The capacity is the number of people, of passengers that the airport processes annually.
So capacity is what is processed annually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the number of people that the airport can competently process.
So is it okay for me to say Kenya Airport has a capacity of up to 8 million customers? That is correct?
Up to no.
Up to no.
Based on the report, when we noted that the airport was being expanded, Alphonse took us through a journey of how progressively we reached that 7.5 million capacity of passengers per year. Okay. And this was based on a 2017 AFDB report that was published. However, we see that this capacity of 7.5 million to what the minister is saying of 8.3 million is based on a strategic plan. So this hasn't been achieved yet. So it's like he's trying to front these figures and inflating them so that it can show that we really need Adani in it so that we can reach this futuristic goal of expanding the capacity of JKIA. Basically, that's what he's trying to do. But what we are seeing is there's no sufficient due diligence. The figures are being, right now we have 7.5, we have 8 million, we have 8.3, and we're being taken through 8.6. And he's kind of trying to push us here, there, everywhere, so that now we kind of feel like, okay, we are being pressured towards this futuristic goal where we can have an expanded airport, the number of passengers, the capacity can really, go into the future and, achieve these big goals. But we're not exactly being able to, the figures presented are not being able to paint the picture that we require so that we can say, okay, I think Adani is the best option for us right now.
Still on that numbers, the way you're talking about numbers, now to go further where he was trying to tell us in future, what we expect in future. He said like by 2054, the passenger capacity at JKIA is now projected to be 32 million and cargo 1 million. So cargo will be 1 million and then passenger capacity 32 million. Have you seen this anywhere?
This part was a tricky one because as fact checkers, we try not to predict the future.
True.
So the reason why we tackled this claim is to find out whether there's a government document that is publicly available that has given this forecast. And we went digging and we found that the figures are all over the place. And one of the reasons why let me just start from the beginning. Now, I think you guys, 2010, 2009, 2010, you remember the Kenya Vision 2030, which is the National Development Roadmap, where Kenya was to be in 2030. Now, to implement that vision, we have something we call the Medium-Term Development Plan. Now, the Medium-Term Development Plan is 5-year plans that adhere to Vision 2030. So it says, okay, this is the vision we want to do, but for the next 5 years, this is what we're going to do. Now, the second medium-term development plan came out in 2013. In it projects that we're going to have 45 million passengers in 2030. Take note of that number.
So 25
20,
in 2030. 45
million
million
passengers
Okay.
in 2030. Now, come 2015, we find another document that says, and I think this is one of those documents that when governments or projects are being is asking for, when government agencies are asking for money, or they're looking for money from external creditors or funders, they have to say, this is the situation, this is our goal. So in one of those documents from 2015, it shows that 18.5 million passengers and 900,000 tons of cargo by 2030.
So is it reducing?
So that's it. Now you see, document 1 says we're looking for 45 million by 2030. Document 2 comes down to 18.5.
Right.
Now the people who manage the airport themselves, the Kenya Airports Authority, put out another document that says it's 35 million by 2030. Yeah, different document, different forecast on the same thing.
Different figures.
Okay. Then we come to 2022. The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, which is the regulator of the airports, they put out a document that says 2030, 11 million passengers, 700,000 tons of cargo. Now, that is 2022. The cabinet, just weeks like when it was defending the Adani deal and speaking about the airport capacity issues and construction costs, it cites the National Aviation Policy, which is not public.
Okay.
Then the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport Master Plan, Medium-Term Investment Plan. They also cite it. And this one says it will be 42.1 million passengers.
Still.
Now, when you look at all those documents, all those figures, you're like, okay, what's the figure for 2054? We don't have a figure for 2054. So for us, this is one of the things that we do at Africa Check. We have to show people the incoherence in the data held by public institutions, how that data is misused or used to fortify some narratives, and how we can there is a need to invest in proper data. So doing a feasibility study, doing passenger forecast studies, that should not be rocket science. So if the government was serious, that is also one of the things. Because we do not have access to the National Aviation Policy and the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, for this claim we said we haven't seen evidence that supports it, and therefore we couldn't disprove it, and there we said it's unproven.
But still on the cargo, when he was talking about 1 million ton, but he said a different claim on this, maybe to make it believable that cargo is going to expand. When he said like a total of 367,000 tons of cargo was handled through JKIA. Now, JKIA only handles these 367. Is that correct?
I think that too is wrong. And that was a very quick one to debunk, because you just look at the Kenya Airports Authority data, you look at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and he was wrong. I think the correct number handled was what, 372, Tess?
372,248 tons. Then also another 591 tons in mail. So we look at, compared to the 367,000 tons for JKI, according to his figure, he's like 5,000 tons.
Yeah, that's too much.
So that's
over.
several plane loads of cargo.
Way over.
Yeah.
As we see such errors and inaccuracies in these claims made by officials, this is government officials, how they're impacting public trust and in the decision-making process that the people need to do. Like, how are we deciding on this? This is correct because it has been said by the government official. But how do you see these, like when addressing sensitive issues, national issues, how can we help people to actually understand this is the correct information, this is accurate, this is not accurate? When it's coming from a government official, it's believable to many people. So what are we going to tell people to believe in?
Makinia, the trust deficit that is there, and I think this is where I applaud Kenyans, because for the last 8 years that fact-checking has been around in Kenya, the kind of work that we have done to put out show people where to get information, how to process that information. I remember one of the first lessons we put out is that just because it's official does not mean it's factual.
Yeah.
So they might come out, they will put out the information, but you have to verify. You have to ask them, what's the proof for this information? And here, the problem with this, because it's the Minister for Transport, it's the government spokesperson, and then we have the majority whip.
Yeah.
The understanding is that all these people have access to data. They have access to very good information, and therefore they will be factual when they put it out. And whichever story they want to tell, and this is what, whenever I meet the public officials, I tell them, whatever story you want to tell, just use accurate data. Because it gives you a foundation upon which to build policy. It gives you the evidence upon which to make decisions. So the decisions that you make using accurate data will inevitably buy you more trust from the public, and either the decisions will also make your work easier. But as you can see from here, they used numbers to downplay the capacity of JKIA to make the situation sound dire than it actually was, to show that how bad things are, so that Kenyans would be in a hurry to approve a deal they don't understand. The second bit they did was to compare Kenya to a neighboring country, which is Rwanda. And there are a few things that Kenya has borrowed from Rwanda. For example, the issues about the cleanliness in the cities and things like those. There have been instances when Kenya would cite Rwanda for implementing some of the policies. But when you look at it, there is no rush. We've seen this before with SGR, said. So a bit of transparency before project implementation, even just putting out the document. Let Kenyans judge for themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, when it comes to policy communication, government believes in sirikali, like anything
they say goes.
anything
You don't question.
Yeah, it's a very big secret. So we will tell you what you need to know when you need to know. And there is the patronizing attitude from some of the comments, like the tweet by the majority whip. It was somewhat patronizing in the sense that he puts out false information that is easily verifiable, and puts it like we don't understand. I think he ended the tweet with Tumerogwa or something like that.
Like he wanted us to see it,
or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. And Kenyans understand these things. They understand that a public-private partnership is not free money. They understand that while it's not a loan, somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
And they will pay for it, because this is not like the first public-private partnership. They have seen many, and they have seen how these projects have burdened the government. And the fact that it is government officials defending something that should be, whose need should be obvious to the public, it tells you quite a bit. And then lastly, and then I'll shut up, it's the issue about
to cut you off.
Yes. So it's the issue of procedure. It's the issue of openness. It's the issue of transparency. It's nobody benefits with this secrecy around public projects. Yeah. So we're wasting a lot of time and a lot of political capital and a lot of citizens' time trying to convince people about something that should be obvious. But the culture within the country where mega projects are avenues for corruption makes citizens very skeptical. And when citizens are skeptical, when citizens are questioning, and you are addressing them with false statistics or false data, the gap, the trust deficit just widens, and your legitimacy to continue in office becomes questionable.
Thank you, Alphonse. Thank you, Alphonse. Let's just give us a last statement before we wind up.
Yeah. So I think in summary, what we're seeing here is citizens that are refusing to be gaslighted
That's a good thing.
not only the president, but his officials, from the spokesperson to, even ministers. Everyone in government was literally coming together to gaslight an entire population. And we can see how data matters. Data is the one that will actually tell a story, regardless of what type of perceptions that they want to weave using, a concocted story. So we know now Adani does not have the background, does not have the expertise, and also the data that is existing is questionable. The data that the government is using is questionable. So I think also we appreciate access to accurate information. Institutions like the Statistics Bureau, Kenya Airports Authority, there is still publicly accurate data, publicly available data that is accurate and that Kenyans can actually refer to in instances such as these. So I think there's still hope. We may be fighting against something like a big monster, but at least when we look at the data, we're able to sift through perceptions of, false information that is being spread online. Maybe it's being spread by the government, but at least we have something to, fall back on as citizens of this country.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've had very insightful discussion, and I'm able now to understand where it came from, Adani deal came from, and how it's been moving, and where we are as Kenyans. So thank you for tuning in, and stay informed. What I've gotten out of this is follow the data, accurate data. Please don't get fooled online. Thank you.